Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up, the Crusty podcast, episode 113. A poke and a promise. Yes, Quebec language debacles and a possible vaccine passport coming at you pretty quickly. All that and more. Stick around.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me.
Yes, sir.
There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast, a Canadian veteran's point of view on political, social, economic issues and life. Here's Crusty.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, episode 113. I'm Crusty Canuck, your host. And just as a reminder, listener discretion is advised. This episode, or any episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast, is not meant for children because I use big, nasty swear words. So don't say I didn't warn you. Yes, like I say, a poke and a promise. All this talk about vaccines and passports, and I came across an interesting story about language laws in Quebec. But before that, if you like and hear what you see, please click like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Share the content around. Let's get the algorithm going for us independent folk there. And if you do feel like donating, please donate at crustycanuck.ca. Links will be in the description. You can donate as much as you like, one lump sum or nothing at all. I like to keep this free, but I want to make a full-time living out of this, so I need your help, my listeners and fans alike. So please consider donating today and check out my shop at customizedgirl.com. You'll see links in the description as well. So carrying on, a poke and a promise. Yes, of course, there's big talk about vaccine passports, making them necessary, making them mandatory. They're talking about it in Britain, Scandinavia, rest of Europe, the United States, and of course, in beloved, the great white north of Canada. But first, I want to get to a story I came across in the Ottawa Citizen. And what I will do is I'll read this for you here. Just queuing it up. Yes. Immigrant from France fails Quebec's French test for newcomers. Isn't that ironic? A guy from France who drives a truck, who's qualified to drive said vehicle, right? Who's qualified to do magical things, and yet he fails the French test. That's just weird. Anyway, I'll read the story here for you. It comes from the Ottawa Citizen. I'll leave a link in the description there for you, too. Immigrant from France fails Quebec's French test for newcomers, and that comes out of the Ottawa Citizen. He quotes, "If I failed it when I'm French, I can understand how someone who is Mexican, who doesn't speak French, could fail," said the truck driver. His name is Johan Flamen. So I'll just read along here. If someone from France can fail Quebec's French test for immigrants, how hard is it for non-francophone to pass? ? Johan Flamen, 39, a truck driver from Limoges, if I'm pronouncing that right, Limoges, Limoges, France, who came to Quebec in 2018 under the Quebec Experience Program, wasn't too nervous about taking the French test set by the Department of Immigration, Francization, and Integration. Interesting title. After all, he'd spoken only French his entire life, aside from a smattering of English picked up in school and in long-haul trucking jobs he took in the United States. But much to his surprise, when he took the test more than a year ago, he failed. "If I failed it," he says, "when I'm French, I can understand how someone who is Mexican, who doesn't speak French, could fail," he said in an interview on Sunday. Flamen noted when he first arrived in Quebec, he had passed the test for his professional Quebec driver's license entirely in French. "I think it's ridiculous," he said, and rightfully so. The Quebec Experience Program fast-tracks permanent residency for foreign students and workers already established in the province. The Coalition Avenir Quebec government overhauled the program last year after a widespread controversy over the first failed attempt at reform in 2019. Flamen said he doesn't disagree in principle with requiring immigrants to prove they speak French. However, he feels the test should not be so hard a native French speaker has trouble passing. Interesting. What tripped him up was the oral comprehension portion, which involved analyzing a recorded conversation from different points of view, including its political content. "We're all human. We all have different levels of concentration," he said. "Anyone can make a mistake." And he's right there, yes. He also feels the delays in obtaining permanent residency are unacceptably long. In July, he retook the French test and passed, but he still is waiting for his selection certificate. Attracted to Quebec by its wide open spaces and plentiful work opportunities, Flamen is happily settled in the Beauce region with his Quebecois wife. If I had wanted to live in a big city like Montreal, I would have stayed in France, he said. In 2019, the province denied Quebec's selection certificate to a PhD student from France after bureaucrats ruled her level of French wasn't adequate because one of the chapters in her thesis was in English. This decision was overturned after widespread media coverage. Well, rightfully so, okay? Now, I have personally worked with a lot of Quebecers in my time in the military. And out of all those individuals I have worked with, I might have maybe encountered one individual that was a staunch separatist. And I had to remind that individual that he was wearing a Canadian uniform, receiving Canadian pay, working for Canada. I guess that bum reality bummed him out really. But needless to say, I have never had any issues with Quebecers in this country. Never. The Bloc, that's a different story. But the average Quebecer, every time I've drove through Quebec and I've tried my best to speak some French, I've had praise for my efforts. I've had praise for some of my pronunciation. That's fantastic. Okay. But when I look at a Quebecer like, let's say, Maxime Bernier or other members of parliament who have really, really thick, strong French, okay, so be it. You know? And I've met Quebecers that speak English fluently as what you and I do. And it's never been an issue for me. But what gets me is that when you have one province that puts emphasis on words like Francenization and more or less assimilation to something, why is it such a terrible crime for the rest of the country to have that too? Right? Why is that such a terrible thing? Why is that terrible? Why is it so bad that, okay, if I'm living in a predominantly English area and I expect people to speak English, but the moment someone complains about that, oh my God, hands are raised up and all the re's are coming out of the goddamn woodwork. Oh my God, how dare you? How racist, how belligerent. How is that unacceptable here, yet it's acceptable in La Belle Provence? Something to think about, right? Especially when it happens to a guy and his first language is French. Parisian French, right from France, right from the horse's mouth, right? What would the papers say? What would the outrage say? Let's say if a guy came from Ireland, let's say he came from the Republic of Ireland, and he had to write an English test, okay? Do we have that equivalency here in Canada? As far as I know, we don't, okay? I think there's a comprehension that we have to have, especially when people come from different countries that don't speak any English whatsoever. But I really don't think that there's emphasis on that, to be honest with you, because we're all supposed to be diverse and free and all this. But when you throw that kind of crap in there, you make things adverse, right? You constantly make things adverse, which is really unfair, not just to Canadians and English speakers and French speakers, to people that want a better life.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, carrying on with a poke and a promise. Yeah, I use the term promise because, you know, when you come to a new nation to build a better life, you try to promise yourself to get ahead. And with little things like that, like language laws and barriers like that, you're not really encouraging people to get ahead. You're not encouraging the best that people can be. I personally don't care who comes to Canada for a better life. I don't care what language you speak. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what sports you play, whether you play with your friends, play with your loved ones, play with yourself. I don't care. What I care is that you want to contribute. What I care is that you want a better life and you're willing to work your ass off to do it. Isn't that what we're all supposed to be doing now? Regardless of the pandemic, regardless of the so-called issues that our beloved leaders like to throw down our throats, right? Common sense, folks, okay? Like I said, I've worked with a lot of Quebecers that are great people, and I remember a couple of them I actually played hockey with that had trouble understanding the language, and what it comes down to is that being patient and listening, and as long as you can understand each other, as long as you don't expect anyone to write the great Canadian novel or write another fucking thesaurus, thesaurus, or write a dictionary for you, everything will be fine. Okay? And that's the way it should be. I don't care if you speak French or English, or if you speak Swahili, Cantonese, Szechuan, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese. I don't care if you speak Pashto or Farsi or Hindi. I don't care. It's not the point of what you speak. It's how you identify as an adult and how you want to express yourself. And if you have a hard time speaking the language, then there's resources out there that can help you vis-a-vis English and vis-a-vis French too, right? So I'm getting so sick and tired of this identity bullshit that numerous tax dollars get invested into just because a handful of people want to live with the comfort of la langue being superior, right? When really there's no superior language in this country. This country was based on English and French perspectives, morals and values, and they're relatively the same, right? Regardless of what monarchy did this, what monarchy did that, and not to mention the vast amount of languages out there from our First Nations too. Quite a bit of history. So while some of these aficionados are squabbling about who's writing a test properly or who's speaking French to the Quebec standard versus the French Parisian standard, maybe you should look in your backyard and look at some of the Cree languages and the Mohawk languages and the Iroquois languages and the Blackfoot languages and the Inuit languages and the Dene languages and the Haida languages. A lot of history in those words, right? Take a look at that. While we're squabbling about English and French, let's worry about some of those languages too. And there's a vast array of history and choices and opportunities that all those languages represent. I like to think because it's Canadian, what it represents, what it does, right? But hats off to that Frenchman who tried to get ahead, shaking his head, going, "What it is, this is my mother tongue, and I failed the language test. What is that? What a joke, right?" Anyway, here's a word from my sponsors.
This is Brian Boucher, the new CEO of Canuck Gold Corp. We have gold at 99% purity with discounts ranging from $100 up to $200 off the ounce. This is the right place to buy, from 2-gram cards to 400-ounce bricks. We have any quantity of gold you are looking for. We also sell by the ton, not like your ex-wife. Visit us today at canudgold.com, CANUND gold.com.
In October of 2015, Lindsay Robbins, like many of her fellow Canadians, was struggling with the turmoil of mental illness. The ups and downs of what she was going through was shaping her realities, and she longed for structure. As luck would have it, that structure presented itself to her in the form of gardening. And through gardening, Lindsay had an awakening that led her to create Produce for Heroes. Lindsay realized that our veterans were going through their own mental struggles, and through her own experience, she realized the power of community. By desiring to help the way that she had been helped, she has created a program that provides relief to veterans. Her food program, which aims to provide veterans and their families relief from the stresses of food insecurity and help alleviate the cost of living for those that have sacrificed so much for their country. Whether it's through directly contacting Produce for Heroes or through a friend's referral, all veterans and their families living in Canada are welcome. By shining a light on the struggle of veterans and their families, Lindsay is hoping to get her fellow Canadians to hop on board and support Produce for Heroes and our great veterans. If you or a veteran you know needs help, ProduceForHeroes.com is a great place to start.
Well, smack my ass and call me Judy.
Yes, you can reach Scott and Brian at Canuck Gold and Lindsay at Produce for Heroes on my description page under the heading Sponsors. Anyway, carrying on. A poke and a promise. Yes, of course. Yes. So promises of liberty and diversity, while we have leaders that create adversity. When you look at my thumbnail there, you can see the word adverse with a question mark. Yes, and that's a picture of yours truly there, ladies and gentlemen, with sunglasses on. Little memes I put together every time I do a show. I'm trying to make my own little thumbnails there to keep it authentic and real without any kind of manufacturing BS. But needless to say, I digress. Now we're talking about the whole vaccine passport issue. So even though vaccines are being brought into this country, slowly but surely, now they're talking about getting passports. Just talk about it in the States. I'll leave a couple of links in the description for you guys to read and come up with your own thought and your own thesis on it. But I don't know, folks. There's more bullshit creeping as we speak, right? It's just getting ridiculous, More lockdowns. Of course, Ontario and Quebec are feeling them. Every time you turn on the news, you're hearing more stuff from PEI and more stuff from Nova Scotia. And there's one case here, 3,000 cases there. Oh my God, the ICUs are fucking getting capacitated. They're getting overwhelmed, overworked. And there's still speculation that they're not. Now you look at anything Canada Poly says, Frank B. Vaughan, a few of my other friends in Ontario, they're telling me otherwise. Things are busier, yes. Things are getting tighter, but they're not overwhelmed. We hear it in the national news that all these hospitals being overwhelmed. So it's like stockpiles of people that are lining up, apparently. And yet they still have Walmarts and Costco's open, right? Restaurants are being closed again. Businesses are being compromised again. And yet you can hop on an airplane, right? People are losing their religious right to go out and worship and practice their faith, to eat, drink, and breathe, and eat, drink, and pray, to buy their own merits and their own rights that are set in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? And yet they can't do it. But you can hop on an airplane and go elsewhere, right? And get your test here, get your test there, and then be locked up in a quarantine hotel upon your return to Canada based on government contracts, right? So things aren't perfect, ladies and gentlemen. I'm well aware of it. And when these individuals are saying you have to have a passport, well, is that passport going to guarantee you freedom to go to point A to point B without any other persecution or prosecution or being handed a fine? I guess in the news today, you can see that Arthur Porowski, the minister out of Calgary, who literally told those Calgary police officers to get the hell out of his fucking church. He didn't scream any profanities at him, but he more or less made the point. Get out, get out, get out. Don't be like the Gestapo, right? And they were reluctant to leave, but they couldn't do much because they didn't have a warrant signed by the Queen's bench to infiltrate and investigate and arrest accordingly. So well done, Mr. Arthur Pawlowski. Well done to you, sir. And I'm going to try to get him onto my Thursday fastball when I can, too. Interesting fellow from what I've read about him and what I've seen. And like I say, I'm not religious myself, ladies and gentlemen, but that doesn't matter. I fought for Canada. I fought for everyone's right. You know, some of my brothers and sisters, we fought for everyone's right to do that. You know, that's the idea of being a soldier, as far as I know, unless that's changed too. But it just brings me to parts of that last episode I did where how the NDP wants to abolish it all. And it gets me to more of the idiocy that's being promoted as we speak too. I'll leave some links in the description there too, how Elizabeth May and the Greens want to bring down the voting age based on a post-millennial article too, to 16, right? So they're desperate for a base, ladies and gentlemen. They're not doing this for the good of democracy. They're not doing this to make things better or make everything equal and sunshine, puppy dogs, fairy tales, and pixie fucking farts. They want to fuck with our democracy and turn it into a joke. Now, I remember when I was back in my life when I was 16. Okay, I was angry. It was punk rock. I hated the fucking world. Yeah, proletariat where it's at. Community, love this, love that. Fuck yous all. Bit of a contradiction in itself, but yeah, I was an angry little kid. Why the fuck would I have voting rights? When I look back at that now, thinking, thank God. Wow. But that's part of growing up and learning and doing things, right? Formulating your own opinion, formulating your own way of life, trying to really find what makes you do your own thing and liking it and living with yourself in the whole process, the growing up phase. Now these fucking know-it-alls want to lower the voting age to 16. I don't agree with it, right? I don't agree with it for the simple fact that you really don't know who the hell you are. And that when you're 16 years old, you look at the aesthetics of something. You don't look at the foundation of something because you don't have the maturity yet. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. You know, tell me what you think.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
Yeah, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, a poke and a promise. I'll leave links in the description about that article. It was quite the interesting little chuckle. I'll let you read it yourself. But it just seems, you know, we're getting up for election and all these parties are scraping the barrel for whatever proving and talking points they can get their hands on just to win favor, right? And, of course, the Greens and the NDPs and the Liberals are all fucking on the same train ride for this UBI thing. So, again, more people are going to go, oh, wow, great, more free stuff. I guess I don't have to think for myself because the government's going to give me at least $500 a month just to sit in my hands and pick my nose and play video games. Eh? Oh, that's so productive, isn't it? Right? What a great way to stand up for what's right by receiving a handout that comes from Canadian taxpayer dollars, right? But they don't see the bigger picture in that too. Well, if hyperinflation hits, and then what? Right? What's going to happen after that? More jobs are going to be gone. More businesses are going to close up. Right? You're going to need more police officers to keep things in check, right? You know, to raid churches and to raid businesses and gatherings because they're unlawful, because they're scared, right? All the Bonnie Henrys, all the Teresa Tams, all the health know-it-alls out there dictating terms, even though they're appointed to be health officials, not leaders, right? And that's the thing. They don't fucking care. I know George Carlin had a routine about rights. It was quite interesting. You know, he talked about inherent God-given rights and all this, and he made a very, very valid point. It's like, if it was God's given right, why was it okay for this country to die, and why was it okay for this country to flood, and why did this war happen, and all that? And basically, to summarize everything he said, you know, do we really have rights? You know, do we really have rights in the big scale of things? And I would say yes. You know, I would debate him. You know, I wouldn't disagree with him entirely. The man was fucking brilliant. The man was funny as hell. But there's something worth fighting for. Okay? It's something worth fighting for. If you don't agree with somebody, you don't have to agree with them. But then if you go to your way to harm that person because you disagree with them, then there's a problem. You know? You don't have to agree with the clergy. You don't have to agree with the Quran. You don't have to agree with the Tova or the Torah or anything Buddhist or anything Hindi. You don't have to agree with the lemon worshippers down the road or the monkey dancers the street over. But if you go to your way to harm anybody because you disagree with their policies or they disagree with your policies, then we've got a fucking problem. That's just a test of your character. It has nothing to do with your faith in God or faith in Muhammad or faith in Buddha or faith in the monkey gods and the lemon gods or even fucking Scientology. Zinner. Fucking just weird shit. But I was raised in a household where you don't condemn anybody for that. Okay? You don't give one a hard time. You can debate and discuss, and dialogue is key. But if I invite you into my home and you want to talk about your faith, okay, I will give you that platform. That's just me allowing it too in my home, right? If I go to your house and you want to talk about faith, fine. That's fine too, you know. But I'm not going to comply to any kind of religious rhetoric. I'm not going to comply to it because I believe myself as a free thinker, and I think there's a majority of Canadians out there that do the same thing too. But I also want Christians to go to church. I want Muslims to go to mosques. I want Jews to go to their synagogues. I want Quebecers to parlez-vous en français. I want les Anglais to speak English. I want Cantonese Canadians to speak Cantonese. I want Szechuan Canadians to speak Szechuan. I want Korean Canadians to speak their Korean. I want the Cree to speak Cree, the Mohawks to speak Mohawk. I want the Iroquois to speak Iroquois. I want the East Coasters to speak their Gaelic loud and proud. Because it doesn't fucking matter as long as we understand. That fucking simple.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And the more and more I hear about these politicians talking about racial divide and identity crisis and language, okay? I took a lot of French in school, and where I was living at the time, there was really no means to use it other than with the French teacher and to get your passing grade and to carry on to the next grade and yada, 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 to quote Jerry Seinfeld. But you know what I mean, right? And until you use the language on a regular basis, you forget it. Now, I learned more French in the military, working with a lot of Quebecers, taking French courses, and getting that grade up there so I could understand a few words and a few sentences and phrases. And the more I practiced, the more I picked up, the more I understood. And the more I embraced the language. And it never fazed me at all. And I was getting praise from some Quebecers, and I was getting praise from my own teachers. And I was also equally giving praise to some of my Quebec friends that were pronouncing words differently, better, so I could understand, their comprehension, their writing was getting better, and back and forth. My writing was getting better. Their writing was getting better. So we were learning something, and it was never an issue. But now we still have a handful of people that want to make it an issue, right? You can't put the word assimilate on a license plate, according to that poor guy in Manitoba a couple of years back. But you can have a group of government officials in La Belle Province dictate who passes and who fails a French test, right? It's the contrast just blows my fucking mind here. And when I look at Canada, yes, Canada has always been a fucking diverse nation, regardless of the history, okay? There's a little tidbit that I put on my Facebook page, too, about talking about the weather and some climate issue. And, of course, the token SJW news reporter aficionado was talking about colonialism and capitalism as such a bad thing. And I'd like to remind some of my SJW listeners, if you're out there, if you got the guts to actually talk to me about something. But if you are listening to this by chance, I want to remind some of these people that you're not entitled to anything. And it's because of the colonial model we had, and because of capitalism is why you go to school and you're employed today. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay. If you want things to be handed to you on a regular fucking basis, then one, you either become an invalid, and I'm not trying to disenfranchise any invalids out there, but you either become an invalid and sit in your basement in your safe space in your bubble wrap and play with your gum and your trading cards and watch your CW channel, or you come out to society and start accepting things for what they are, not what you want them to be. Okay? And I'll leave a link to that fucking little broadcast too. It's one of those WTF moments. What the fuck, right? Yeah. So that's going to be my choice of who is going to win the polar vortex of Canadian bullshit, or the Canadian vortex of polar bullshit. All right. So I'll give it to City TV Toronto without further ado. I'll give it to the City TV of Toronto. They are recipients of the Canadian polar vortex of bullshit.
The Canadian polar vortex of bullshit.
It goes to City TV Toronto for putting up such a stupid report. And I'll leave the link in the description for you guys to listen to. And it's only a few seconds long, but just that rhetoric about climate change and all this is because of the colonial and the capitalist model. Oh, my God. Yeah, so that has been
the Canadian polar vortex of bullshit.
And that goes to City TV of Toronto. Maybe City TV as a whole, too. I don't know. But I remember City being pretty cool at one time. And I've talked about this before, but I don't know. Mainstream media has just gone downhill, ladies and gentlemen, both of our countries. My American listeners and my Canadian listeners and my Eastern European listeners, too. A lot of the mainstream media has gone to crap to promote all these narratives in regards to vaccines and in regards to the COVID and the beer bugs and to this race and this group and that group and who wears slippers and who doesn't wear slippers and who picks their nose and who wipes their own ass. It's just ridiculous. It's just turning into a real poop show. But like I always try to say, there is light somewhere. There is light in this chaos, ladies and gentlemen. We just got to keep fighting for it.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
Which also brings me to this Thursday's Fastball. I'm working on a guest as we speak. She's a young lady out of Northern Alberta. She's a business owner, quite the warrior. She does freedom rallies and everything. But I'm just confirming times and issues there. But we'll have a guest this Thursday on the Fastball. And I'll just go over my last Fastball there. One of my last Fastballs was Stephen Buffalo. And if you want to check him out too, please check him out, Stephen B. at irccanada.ca. He's Indian Resources of Council of Canada, President CEO, and he's got quite a lot to say. And if you get a chance too, ladies and gentlemen, please check out the Adam Daniel Mose Hidden Gem live stream podcast. I'm a regular on his show, on his panel there. We talk about politics, social dilemmas, and just life in this country that we call Canada. So please tune into that. We didn't have an episode this weekend because of the Easter issue. Plus, we both have wives and families, what have you, so we're all looking out of ourselves, just trying to make the time. But I'm pretty sure we'll have an episode next Sunday at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard, 6 p.m. Eastern. So if those individuals want to weigh in and watch us on the Hidden Gem live stream, please join us. Ask all the questions you'd like to know. It's hosted by Adam Danny Muzet, all-around Canadian guy. Producer, director, actor, writer, creative genius extraordinaire. So please check out his work as well. If you get a chance, check out the Fred Stockman podcast too on Anchor FM. As far as I know, he's not on YouTube anymore, but please check him out at Anchor FM. Look for Fred Stockman. He's quite the American and Commonwealth history buff too. Inquisitive young man out of Massachusetts. Kiwi American, all around great guy, and I got a lot of respect for him, so he's pretty good. And also check out Frank P. Vaughan's work too. Another Canadian out of Eastern Ontario, does wonderful things, great stories, informative, thorough, family man, blue collar guy. Check him out as well. And of course, check me out too, CrustyCanuck.ca. And pay attention to my community page on YouTube and updates on my Facebook page. I try to get updates for all my listeners and fans out there when I put up a new episode, new content. So keep yourself up to date by checking those out too. Anyway, again, carrying on with more of the A Poke and a Promise. Yes, it sounds like a bad prom date. She said she'd give me a poke and she promised me she'd do it. Oh, what am I going to do now? Well, I just had to come up with a catchy title, but that's where it's going, folks. Everybody's so worried about vaccines, and yet there are people who get these vaccines, and yet they're still told where they can go and not go. So my question is that once you get your shot or your 2 shots, does that mean you're immune to any infection, or does that mean you're not immune? That means you still have to sit in your hands and wait for a biscuit. Which is it? Right? And now you need proof of vaccination everywhere you go now. So not only do you need your regular passport if you're leaving the country, you got to get yourself your needle book too. All right? Now, I've heard a couple of people in the distance talking about how, oh, well, every time you travel to this tropic island or this area, you got to get these shots and those shots anyway. And I said, yeah, well, these are shots that are supposed to protect you, i.e. from malaria and tetanus, diphtheria, dysentery, typhoid, stuff that used to kill people prior to refrigeration and proper sanitation, that kind of stuff. But these things, I know that they're still talking in the wind, hoping for pixie dust to come and bless everybody with magical powers, right? No. So that's my concern with the vaccines. Now, I'm not an anti-vaxxer per se, but I'm an anti-bullshitter too. And I, for one, I'm very skeptical when it comes to it. Because my wife and I, we haven't been sick. We've had a couple of head colds last a couple of days. No biggie. But, you take some Buckley's, or you take some Dristan, or, take some Sudafed or some Advils, get some sleep, drink some tea, drink lots of water, constantly blow your nose. Oh, you're good to go, right? Adequate rest. What else do you need? Rather than some so-called liberal, and I will call them liberal because they're very liberal-minded when it comes to telling us what to do, yet they're very, very dictatorial when it comes to telling us how to live too, right? Especially the sound of how many of them are getting paid $300,000 a year to tell us how to be safe when they've been caught traveling around the country whenever the hell they wanted to. So I don't care what the science says. Science gets bought and paid every fucking day. So all I can say is we have to keep our wits about us and do what we think is right, And like I've said in my last few episodes too, we're going to have to demand the questions, demand the answers too, and do what we can to get the truth, to find light at the end of the tunnel.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at CrustyCanuck.ca.
And like I've said, a poke and a promise, ladies and gentlemen. So we get all these pokes and then promised what? Right? Sovereignty, liberty, Open up the fucking stores already. Enough of this shit. Weather's getting better out there. People want to get outside. Hats off again to Mr. Pastor Arthur Pawlowski, Polish immigrant who lived through and survived communism, witnessed the Solidarity movement, come to Canada for a better life. And this guy does a wonderful job. So I'm going to try to get him on my Thursday fastball if I can too. I'll try to get him on there, have a good talk with him about his freedom fighting and the amount of tickets and the harassment he received from the Calgary Police Service over the past year when he was reaching out and being charitable to people, right? So I'm going to try to get him on the show if I can too. And a special thanks out there again to Tiffany and Tammy for sending me the links and sending me lots of information. I want to thank all my fans too who have sent me some wonderful emails the past 3 days. Wow, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not going to mention your names. There was one individual who has sent me about 100 emails. So thank you. Thank you very much for that. And I'll try to keep up as best as I can, but I get a lot of this information and it's hard to read and keep up, folks. So, but there's a lot of people out there who have sent me some really warm thoughts and prayers, and thank you. I'm the deepest of my heart. Thank you very much. And I'm grateful that I have listeners and fans such as yourselves showing me this information and spreading the word out too. So please keep liking, subscribing, and sharing this all around all your social media platforms. Get the word out there, right? And especially the people that come out to my premieres too, who say some kind words and give me a thumbs up and words of encouragement. It's much appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. And I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to keep doing it because of people like you. And please consider donating if you can too. I want to make this a full-time commitment, and I need people like yourselves out there to make it happen and to help me make it happen. So I'll keep putting out the work, and you just keep giving the time and do what you can to help each other out. So, but like I say, it is now about 2:30 p.m. It's the 6th of April. Wonderful day outside. I got some yard work to do. I go tick around there with some of the grass, put my garden stuff together. It's getting warmer, so I'm going to start overturning my dirt. Found my seeds, so I'll be probably planting those probably in May. But in the meantime, I'll be prepping the soil, getting everything ready to go for this season's gardening, and hopefully I'll have a good crop come out. So, but like I say, ladies and gentlemen, we got to do what we can to help each other out. I'm still going to do my best for the Veterans Coalition Party. I'll leave links in the description for you guys to look at and look at our manifest and all that good stuff too. And let's just hope things are going to go well for us. Try to be optimistic as best we can. Do what we can to help our neighbors out and our friends out and loved ones. Like I say, a little bit of effort to help your neighbor with groceries or whatever yard work. Let's look after our elders, look after our seniors. Let's do what we can to help each other out. Don't buy this racial narrative. Don't buy this gender narrative anymore. I'm so sick of it. And I can honestly say a lot of my fans are getting sick of it too. But like I say, look after your friends and loved ones, ladies and gentlemen. Do what we can to help each other out. And remember, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, and I'll see you probably Thursday on the Crusty Canuck Thursday Fastball. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. Yes, sir. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
This has been another episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Stay sane and thank you for listening. From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast.